Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show. Outlander is the show about Claire Fraser, a 20th century nurse married after a bit of time travel to Jamie Fraser, a wanted 18th century Scottish laird, and all the shenanigans that the pair of them get embroiled in. Episode 13, The Watch, leaves off from the cliffhanger on episode 12, with Douglas Henschel holding a gun to Jamie's head. Turns out that Dougie is a man called Macquarie, and he's part of a watch, and he isn't actually out to get Jamie, and chills out totally when Jenny tells him that he's actually her cousin, Jamie McTavish. So everyone chills out and start telling old war stories, and Jamie actually almost seems to start to warm towards Macquarie, but not really to his men. See, the rest of the watch seem like a bunch of weirdos, like Scary Face Man and the guy who played Yoren in Game of Thrones. And they all prove their dickishness by setting some hay on fire, so Jamie naturally beats the crap out of them. All of them. But luckily Macquarie comes by and he puts an end to the daftness. And again, things seem okay. Until even more of the watch arrive, and one of them turns out to be Horrocks. Remember, the turncoat informer from about 5 episodes ago? No? You don't remember? Anyway, he looks an awful lot like Robin Williams in Jumanji. Strange. While Jamie's fretting about Horrocks recognising him and giving away the fact that he's a wanted man, Claire's getting all frantic because Jenny's oncoming pregnancy is nearly here. But she's the kind of nurse who's all about gunshot wounds and stabbings, not babies and that sort of stuff. And things start seeming bleak because there's no midwife, and especially considering Jenny and Jamie's mum died in childbirth. So when Claire drops the bombshell on Jamie that she doesn't think she can even have kids herself, and he kind of takes it well enough, at least until she's out the room. So Jamie has a quiet word with Horrocks and actually agrees to pay him off, and so Horrocks is going to bugger off to the Americas, but naturally he's a greedy dafty and he wants more money than Jamie's got. So Ian ends up giving him the stabby end of a sword, and that's the end of him, especially as it turns out that Macquarie guessed that they did it, and he couldn't care less. So Jamie and Ian come on the planned raid in Horrocks' place. And then our wee star-crossed couple have a slow-motion hug just before he goes. That couldn't be foreshadowing, could it? Impending doom? But anyway, the lads ride off to work, and Claire and Jenny do their babby bit, and luckily all goes well there. But in shock of horrors, it turns out the ambush was a double ambush, and a whole bunch of redcoats come in, and with a heavy heart, Ian comes dragging back to Lallybroch by the Game of Thrones man to tell Claire that Jamie's been captured. Oh no. So what did I think of The Watch? Well, I think this was a great improvement on last week's episode, considering the way that last week dragged a bit and was in danger of turning the show into a bit of a melodrama. Instead, episode 13 is riddled with tension and worry, as the audience gets to be on the edge of the watch, prowling round Jamie, while the worries over Jenny's pregnancy are also looming dangerous. It's also great that the watch are done with a few predictably grim and nasty types, but tempered with a great turn from Douglas Henschel as Macquarie. I mean, Macquarie really feels like a rounded character. He's not a baddie, but he's a dark character, and he's kind of a little bit like Jamie is, more than it is first apparent. It was also nice to see Jamie reacting to the news that he might never have kids with Claire. And I don't mean, his usual say the right thing at the right time moment thing, but more this wee moment of lost sadness on his face and he sits down when she goes away. But this is Grumpy Opinions, and yeah, I had more than a couple of gripes with this episode. To begin with, maybe it's just me, but the Jenny pregnancy story was a bit of a limp fish. I mean, if Jenny was going to die, they'd have spent more time with her in the episode, and they'd had a bit more getting to know her stuff, and that plainly wasn't going to happen, nor was the baby going to die. Again, so this felt like Claire Light experience. Sadly, the fact that they're keeping the boy stuff and the girl stuff apart meant that Claire kind of felt even more on the outside with less stuff to do in it, and it was far more interesting watching the story of the watch and the Horrocks and Jamie stuff. And while that was good, it always felt like Horrocks was going to die, and for a man who supposedly managed to outwit the Redcoats and was just about to outwit the Watch, and has managed to do all this both times and not get himself killed, all for profit, his hounding Jamie and telling him he ought to just put the rent up to give him more cash made absolutely no sense. It was just like he was stalling before he inevitably got either shot by Jamie or stabbed by Ian. And the end also felt a little bit scrappy to me. The slow-motion redcoat swarm and that fade to white when they fired the guns. It felt more like they'd fluffed something and they'd been trying to fudge it in the edit. I mean, maybe they didn't, but it kind of looked a little bit bad to me. Still, it was a good cliffhanger, and it leaves us with Claire and Jenny having to save the day next week. So, until then, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions.